Hey lads, today we will see if I can beat Dark Souls 3 without gravity. This is an original idea that I definitely did not steal from anyone. Anyway, no gravity basically just means that I can walk anywhere, but if I gain any height, I will be stuck at that level, and the only way to get lower is by using the terrain to my advantage. Simple, right? No. Well, the concept is simple, but beating the game like this, not so much. The entire game is much more vertical than you might have realized. Anyway, this is an all bosses run, because I have brain damage, but I only had to skip 3 bosses. So leave a comment on which bosses you think I couldn't beat. I won't read them. Anyway, enough yapping. Enjoy.
I chose the Pyromancy class, because having access to ranged attacks is necessary for this run. Immediately after arriving in the Cemetery of Ash, I wasn't able to pick up the Ashen Estus flask, so I had to use the terrain to lower my height. I was then able to get the Gatorade bottle, and I moved on. The bonfire is actually on top of a very high cliff, and something that will become very clear in this video is that going up is much easier than going down, so raising my altitude is almost always a bad thing. Despite this, I chose to get the bonfire. At this point, I knew that I don't have to kill the first boss, as the Firelink bonfire can be used even without the coiled sword. So, I just made my way to the shrine. There might be a slight problem. You have no idea how many hours I wasted during this run just sniffing every single wall in the game to try to find a place that can be used to lower my altitude. Around 80% of this run was just me running into walls to find the one sweet spot that can be used to get a little bit lower. Anyway, enough bitching about my problems. This one specific spot behind Yerm's chair can be used to lower my altitude. And hold on, let me just speed that up a little bit. Then I used this arch to get to the cave part of the shrine. I used the wall on the right to get even lower. I am currently at the lowest point that I can be, so if I can't use the bonfire from this height, well, the run is over. Luckily, I was able to get the bonfire due to the animation of inserting the coiled sword. But do note that after this, if you try to use the bonfire, you will be too high up to do so. So, every time I used the handmaid, or Andre, I had to use the dark sign to get back to the bonfire. I went up to the Swordmaster for some early souls, where I ran into the second biggest problem of this run: death cams and kill boxes. Death cams can easily be solved by quitting out of the game. The game will just put me back to the last place where I touch solid ground. But this can be quite annoying after spending 30 minutes going down a mountain just to hit a death cam and losing all my progress. Kill boxes, on the other hand, well, I gotta be honest, I didn't encounter very many of them, but it is quite a jump scare when you are just minding your own business and suddenly you just die. But death cams and kill boxes really are not that common in the base game, which brings me to the biggest issue of this run, which is areas not loading due to me not touching grass. This is, by far, the biggest issue of this run. Anyway, I did the tree jump with no effort, and got the Estus shard. In the high wall of Lothric, I was immediately hit with the harsh reality of my situation. Something I didn't realize until this point was how much this game plays with verticality. Anyway, my first objective was to get the first bonfire that was currently out of my reach. There were no walls at my current level that could be used to lower my height, except this one specific spot near the longbow pickup. So I ran against this wall until I became a 3-foot-long goblin. Then, by using the other side of the same wall, I managed to lower my altitude enough to start making progress. I used these ledges near the bonfire tower to get lower until I was able to get inside the tower. I used the stairs to get onto the same level as where the bonfire was, but oh no, it would seem that I am stuck here. Luckily, there is this very conveniently placed opening in the wall. Thank you, Miyazaki, very cool. Then I ran to the first bonfire. I started making my way onwards, and I used this dragon to get lower. I used the wing to get even lower, but there is a death cam at the very bottom of the wing, so I stopped right before hitting it and I ran around the death cam. I was able to walk to the next bonfire, but for some reason I was unable to get it. Even quitting out didn't work. After spending some time messing around the nearby area, I can confidently say that this bonfire is off limits for us. Don't ask me why. I don't fucking know. Anyway, I went inside the wall near the shortcut elevator and used the stairs to lower my altitude, and made my way to this other dragon, which could be used to lower my altitude significantly. These dragons really were the MVPs of this area. There are a lot of death cams inside the buildings behind the dragon, so I made my way to the right. I was currently next to the tower that had the second bonfire, but I couldn't proceed unless I was a little bit lower. Luckily, the elevator room pushed me down enough that I was able to make it under the stairs. After I was under the building, I made my way out from a small crack in the wall and used the staircase near Greyrad to get under the floor. The courtyard area was not loaded until I hit this roof by accident. I decided to go inside the building, and I picked up the Titanite shard in this room. There might have been a small miscalculation. There was no way to get out of this room, except by using this railing and taking the scenic route out of the room. I went back to the Greyrat stairs and used this arch to get lower in the courtyard. By using this wooden platform and this one very specific spot on the wall, I was able to lower my altitude a little bit.
Hello there.
Wow, we are so close to Vort's boss room, is what I would say if I had brain damage. We are not even remotely close yet. Anyway, I was getting shot by a crossbow build, and this is why I picked the Pyromancer at the start. I wasn't able to find any places where I could lower my altitude, so I had to make my way inside the castle. The stairs near Emma could be used to lower my height a little bit, but there are invisible walls everywhere, so it wasn't much help. I used these stairs to get under the floor. Then I went to the entrance of the Consumed King's Garden. The bottom of these stairs is almost on the same level as the Dancer's boss room. I navigated past these invisible walls, and I found myself under the floor of the main area. I was able to use the stairs to get to the same level as Vort's boss room, but I couldn't get through the walls. So I went around the boss room, and luckily the cutscene triggers even when coming from the back. Look at this. Did you notice? Enemies can actually push you downwards with specific attacks. This is something that I will later use for some real nasty strategies. But anyway, I wanted to get the cool stagger by attacking Vort's head. Damn, that was a real skill issue moment right there. But more importantly, the cutscene won't play a second time, which means that we are fucked right now, and there is no way I'm going to make a brand new character and going through all that hell again just because I am bad at the game. So, unfortunately, I will just have to teleport to Vort's fog gate and try again. Is what I would say if I was some crying little bitch boy. Of course I'm going to start back from the beginning, because I ain't no casual. Anyway, same build as before. I finally made it back to Vort. I was still salty about the last time, and I almost threw the run again, but I was able to admit defeat and stuck to tickling his balls. With Vort dead, I went to Emma to get the banner. I can't raise the banner. I panicked for a while, because there was no way to lower my altitude any further. As it turns out, I had just missed the prompt for the banner by not walking far enough. The prompt actually extends quite high up. Anyway, easy area, 0 out of 5. In the Undead Settlement, there was nothing that could be used to lower my altitude, but look at these birds though. Pretty cool, right? There you can see our final destination. The tower that housed the giant wasn't any help either, and the tree near the curse-rotted Greatwood was purely just for show. There was no way to get lower. Even the Cathedral of the Deep and Anor Londo didn't help in any way. I then got the brilliant idea to walk from the Firelink Shrine to the Undead Settlement. This seemed like a good plan at the time because my brain is the size of a peanut. But let me explain why this won't work. Here is a spot that loads the area where Sigurd is. If I copy the coordinates for this spot and teleport from the Firelink Shrine to here, the area won't load. The same is true if I walked here. I can say that there is no way to get the Undead Settlement to load when starting from the Firelink Shrine. But I am not a professional, so don't take my word for it. I am basically just improvising everything as I go. Anyway, I still went back to Firelink, and I made my way to the beginning of the Untended Graves. The walls didn't push me down enough, so I was too high up to get the dragon gesture. I quit out near this door to load the Untended Graves, and I walked through the walls to get outside. I went inside the shrine and did the usual strats to get lower. I looted everything except the coiled sword fragment, as I was too high to get it. For fuck's sake. This would have been so useful, as I constantly had to use the dark sign. Anyway, back on track. There still was no way to get lower. Just kidding, I lied. This wall was useless, but the other side of the building actually pushes you down, and I was able to start making progress. I loaded the area by touching this building, near the second bonfire. I used this tower to get as low as possible. I used this wall to get lower, and used the other side to get to the same height as the bonfire. Then I made my way to the Sigurd area. I used these buildings to get lower. By walking into this arch and then this out-of-bounds wall, I was able to use this other arch to get lower, and it somehow pushed me downwards even more than intended. I got the Chloranthy ring. I used this wall to get lower, and I picked up the Fire Clutch ring. I got some tit shards, and was unfortunately cucked from getting this bonfire. I don't know what happened, but by walking into the walls, I was somehow able to get the bonfire. I recruited Pyro Daddy, and made my way to the curse-rotted Greatwood. This fight is easy. Just burst 3 Baltacs to start the second phase. Not funny. I tried to get pushed downwards by his ass cheeks, but it was all in vain. The walls in this room are perfectly straight, unlike me, so I can't get any lower than this. Anyway, I will come back for this guy later. I used this tree and these rocks, and I got to the elevator tower. I don't know if elevators work without gravity. Well, that just makes no fucking sense. But anyway, this means that the run is still alive. Just kidding, the run is dead. Anyway, I got pushed downward by this asshole, and I was able to open the door, but I couldn't get the bonfire. The walls didn't push me down. But sure, I could probably use the Outrider Knight to get low enough to get the bonfire. But that would be so easy and not even worth my time. Anyway, I ignored the bonfire and moved on. I used these rocks and this tree to get lower. This place is filled with death cams and kill boxes. So don't try to do any tomfoolery in this area and just move on. The wall next to the bonfire is fake, and I use this rocky wall to get low, but not too much to avoid death camps. Then I went under the stairs and got back on the main path from here. I went back underground, and I used the main path to get under the swamp. Near the ladder, I went to the Farron Keep, and made my way to the Dark Wraith area. I was too high for the bonfire, but this door behind the lizard pushed me down. I got the bonfire. Back in the swamp, I used this tree to get low enough to get the Sage's Ring and the Pyromancy Tome. I picked up more titties and got the bonfire. I met up with the Int build, and he is actually important for this run, so make sure you find at least one scroll for him. I might have forgotten about him and permanently lost access to his inventory, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, Crystal Sage time. Skip time. I walked up these rocks and used some trees on the other side to lower my height. No cheese, huh? How disappointing. This forest area has a lot of death camps, so I just skipped the bonfire and made my way to the chapel. Nothing special in the graveyard. I used this tree to get the bonus shard. On the roof I used these thingies and then this thingy, just to use this final thingy to get low enough to fit under this arch. Ha ha ha! These guys can't get me since they don't have any ranged attacks. Well, that's new. Hold on, let me check the patch notes. Let's see. Fixed some bugs. Okay. Skill issue. What? Anyway, I use this candle to fit in the hallway, which actually pushes you downwards automatically. Use the enemy to get even lower. I was too high up for the elevator, so I used this pillar to get lower.
Oh, fuck.
From the bonfire, I had to use this wall to fit in the door. I used the giant to get to the bottom. There was no way to get low enough to get the shortcut. So, in the end, I just walked from the first shortcut over this hole to open the second shortcut. Yes, I am a little slow. Thanks for asking. I wanted to get Rosarius Bonfire, so I got the next elevator. But Rosarius area would not load, so I used the giant to gain height. And I was able to use the bridge normally. Next up was the deacons. You already know how this is going to go. Once again, the walls were useless, but I did try to go out of bounds. But I was unable to load the inside of the cathedral from the courtyard. Anyway, up until this point, we have skipped 4 out of the 5 bosses, and I don't know if you realize, but that is not very good. Especially considering that this is an all-bosses run. Anyway, I used this tree, and then this other tree, to lower my height. I used these rocks to get lower, and the rocks in front of the locked gate to get the bonfire. Grab. I used this wall to get to ground level, and I got the tits and a boner. Ladders can be used normally, so I went and killed the stray demon first try.
Oh dear!
This wall, behind the stairs, can be used to lower my altitude. I killed the lizards for large titanite shards. I made my pyro flame into +3. Next up is the Abyss Watchers. Being higher up than them didn't really help with the fight.
We'll use the power of friendship.
Then I realized, why the hell am I even fighting them at all? I used this hill and then these trees to gain height, and I made it out of bounds. By going to the back, I was able to make it into the boss room. Very difficult, 10 out of 10. It just never ends, does it? I went to the top of these stairs and walked over the bonfire room to get out of bounds. By going to the right, I made it under the boss room, and I was able to load the catacombs. This whole area is filled with solid walls, so there is no way to get back in bounds. I used these stairs to get lower. I got the pyromancy tome, and I found this one spot that seemed promising for lowering my altitude. It didn't actually lower my height at all, but I somehow got pushed downwards. This was really lucky. I used this corner to get under the floor, and I went to the stairs in the middle. There is a death cam at the bottom of the stairs. I found this one and only spot that can be used to get back in bounds. And I used the staircase to get low enough to use this doorway and this balcony to get into the hallway. Don't text and drive, kids. I took the normal path through the area and used the stairway to get the bonfire. The rest of the area was basically normal. Don't give up, skeleton. Anyway, big skeleton time. There are invisible walls surrounding us, so I used his face to pick up the pyromancy tome. Then I used the high ground to blast his bracelets. First try, easy, boss. I made my way towards the Smouldering Lake and showed this guy who is the boss. There is no way to proceed, so we will have to do some more tomfoolery. The cavern under the bridge is covered with death cams and kill planes. So, by starting from the bridge, I made my way out of bounds by walking towards the lake. Then, I used the stairs and whatever rocks I could find to eventually end up on the same level as where the demon was. Then, I walked towards the lake to load the cavern again, and I used the end of the cave to get as low as possible. Then, I was able to load the Smouldering Lake. There was a small spot that could be used to get in bounds, and I didn't do it here. But this wall can be used to get low enough to get the bonfire. But basically, this entire area is covered with invisible walls. And if you can't get in bounds, then gain height from the invisible wall and make your way to the ballista. This spot can be used to get in bounds. I turned off the ballista and used this spot to get lower.
Oh my god, he on X Games mode.
The ceiling near the crabs can be used to get lower, and I got the bonfire. Scratch that. This doorway pushed me down enough to get the bonfire. I picked up the pyro ring and got a warm welcome at the lake. I used this wall to get to ground level and got every item in the area. The entrance to the demon ruins had these arches that I was able to get past by running to the right side to lower my height, except the last one, where I had to use the left side. There is no way to get low enough to get this bonfire. How sad. Anyway, I continued on, deeper into the demon ruins. Nothing really interesting, except that I got the pyromancy tome. Anyway, what you see here was done after Anor Londo, when I had a stronger weapon. But I will just show it here, because I can. What? Cry about it. The old Demon King was difficult because the chicken leg that he swings around can mess with your altitude.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
And also, I am not sure, but I might absolutely suck cock at this game by dying to the final explosion attack once. Make that 2. Anyway, moving on to the Boreal Valley. I killed the horrid beast. I got access into the city. Good thing we can just go around the gate. I got height from this roof and made my way to the invisible staircase. I got the church bonfire, no problem. There really wasn't anything I needed from this area, so I just walked to this staircase and used this roof to gain height so I could go around the boss room. I then went to the side entrance of the boss room and lowered the elevator. I could kill him right now, but I have bigger plans for this guy. I entered the fight normally and baited the pontiff to the elevator. At the top, I let him roam free so he could bring absolute destruction upon these mortal fools. Well, that was anticlimactic. But you know, it's fine. I am not mad at all. This took me 50 minutes to achieve. Anyway, I went to the secret ladder, where I found out that if you drop down from a ladder, your character will do this. Pretty cool, right? But yeah, there is no way to stop this. Oh wow, we are really going all right. Anyway, at the archer part, I used these. I don't know what you would call these, but these things, to get to the perfect height to pull the lever. And I made it to the Dark Souls reference. Inside the main hall, there was no way to get lower, so I got to the same level as the main door and went to the right to get around the building. I used the stairs to gain a bit of height, and I gave back shots to the femboy. Our next destination is the Profaned Capital, and the entrance is quite a bit lower than us. So, I used this railing to get lower. This flat spot slowly pushed me downwards, and I was then able to make it to the bottom of the railing. Then I made my way towards the back of the dungeon entrance. I went around this building, but there were some invisible walls, so by going around the elevator, I made it under this staircase. I lowered my height a little bit and walked to the staircase near the main plaza. Try not to load this room with Sigurd, as it will unload the dungeon entrance. Despite this, I continued on to where our destination should be, and by running around for a while, I was able to load the building again. I used this corner of the main bridge to get low enough to fit under the bridge. Bonfire, get! In this room, there were some places that could be used to get lower, but at this point, my luck ran out. There was no way to get lower until it hit me. This is it. This strategy is a pain in the ass, so luckily I had to use it just twice to fit under the door. But we are not done yet. The rocky walls didn't help in any way, but the other side of the wall could be used to get lower. After some running, I went inside the dungeon. There is no way to continue. Obviously, why the fuck would there be a way? I love doing everything the hard way. Anyway, I used the wall to get under the hallway and used the stairs to get to bonfire level. By humping this room, I was able to load the Profaned Capital, and I made it back in bounds. Anyway, by going back into the wall, you can see the coolest skybox in the game. It's just a shame that this sky is only used when you are underground in some sex dungeon. Anyway, this wall could be used to get low enough to where I was able to just walk to the bonfire tower. I gained a bit of height and I got the bonfire. I got a bit lower to use the ladder. Don't you fucking do it. God damn it. Well, here we go again. At the bottom of the ladder, I used the same rock wall to get low enough to get under the bridge. Watch out for death cams. I used this rubble to get low enough to start the boss fight. This took some trial and error, as Yorm's hands like to push you downwards. But I gained some height from this rubble, and then slowly but surely used Yorm to climb higher. Then, I baited him to the stairs to get even higher. After a while, I had gained maximum altitude.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
Wow, so difficult. Anyway, dancer time.
I'm choking! Stop! 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 Stop the brake! Stop! Stop!
In the castle, I ran past everything and got the first 2 bonfires with no problem. I took the normal path and made it past the wyverns. I killed both of the wyverns and did some looting, but nobody gives a fuck. I got the shortcut. At this point, I had a +8 anal fister, and in my typical fashion, I started doing anything else than progressing the game. Did you know that this gate could be opened from this side? Oh, you didn't ask. Well, okay, I'll just be quiet then.
Oh, fuck.
I got the key for Carla's cell, except I didn't, because that's a different key. I have brain damage. I used this wall to get lower, and I eventually got the dungeon bonfire. Then I used this wall in the Profaned Capital to get lower, and I made my way to the actual key that I needed. I rescued the waifu, I got the dark versions of my pyromancies because they are way cooler than the normal ones, and thus, they are better. Anyway, back on track, Dragon Slayer armor time.
You're the best around.
Fine, I'll fight him. The butterfly actually just took off on its own when I approached it from the outside. And you can't damage the Dragon Slayer when it's passive. Yes, I'm so glad I got these spells when normal pyromancies are so much better.
Oh my god, he on X Games mode.
In the Grand Archives, I got some chunks, and by some miracle I managed to get stuck under these stairs. Absolute cinema.
We've been trying to contact you regarding your car's extended warranty.
Come in the sink. Despite a few hiccups, there wasn't anything special in this area. I killed the Crystal Sage. You want to take this shortcut from the Sage's second location to fit under this doorway. I opened the shortcut by walking into this corner. On the roof, I enjoyed the scenery and this guy's backshots. I ran across the top floor and got the elevator no problem. On the roof, I used mind control to kill 2 of these guys and killed the last one normally for a tit slap. This never gets old. From this balcony, I made my way to the Twin Princes. By going around the building, I could get inside the boss room. Here's some fan service for you. Don't worry, I got you guys. Anyway, I started the fight normally.
This spot marks our grave.
Being higher up than him made this fight much harder because of this fucking slam attack. The hitbox will hit me much earlier than normally, and I don't have the reaction time to dodge this attack. And if I dodge preemptively, I will get caught by some slower attack.
This spot.
Anyway, cheese time. Alright. Next up, I am coming for your ass. Hello? I should have known that it wasn't going to be so easy. This time I triggered the fight before killing him. What the fuck is this bullshit? I don't know why, but I can't kill him no matter what.
This spot.
Anyway, you know what's about to happen next. How are you doing, by the way? I swear, I am not bad at the game, I am just a little rusty, okay? And a little bit of cheese never hurt anyone. Anyway, the game is basically done now. But I still have both the DLCs and a lot of bosses that I skipped on my hit list. Everything up until this point has been pretty smooth sailing. But this is the point where shit hits the gutter. For example, the Consumed King's Garden and Untended Graves. This footage is absolute chaos, that even I can't fully comprehend. Like, what is this? Where am I? I don't know. What am I trying to do here? Where am I trying to go? Nobody fucking knows. Anyway, from the dancer's room, I went over this invisible wall to get under the stairs, and I used the stairs to get to a specific height to fit inside the elevator room. This spot at the back pushed me down enough to pull the lever, and I went to the bottom. These stairs are the real main boss of this area because the roof is fake, and so you can't get any lower than this. By starting from the Firelink Shrine, I did try to approach the boss fight from the Untended Graves, but there is no way to reach the fog gate from the outside due to invisible walls. I was able to get inside the boss room, but there was no way to get lower. Anyway, while I was here, I used this enemy to get the dragon emote, and I used different walls to get low enough to get the bonfire. But basically, the only way to start the Osiris fight was to use these very aggressive enemies to get pushed all the way down the long-ass stairway. But am I going to expose myself to that kind of suffering? Hell no. Okay, fine. This is going to take a while. Anyway, I actually filmed this like 2 weeks after the previous clips, and that's why I have some new spells. 2 HP. 3 HP. Holy hell, I am so lucky. It's just a shame that this game requires skill more than luck, which I am clearly lacking.
Nope. 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 Nope.
Goddamn slippery bastard. What a great fucking fight. I should have done this from the beginning, but I gained some height from the trees and blasted him from above. In the Untended Graves, the boss didn't spawn in, so I used this cliff to get lower. There are death cams absolutely everywhere. But after hitting a death cam, I walked to solid ground before quitting out so I wouldn't lose progress. Then I was able to start the fight. I swear I know how to fight this guy. I am just playing it safe. Anyway, at the Fireling Shrine, I didn't have brain damage, so I used these cliffs instead to get lower, as there are way fewer death cams than the cliff I used in the Untended Graves. Then I used this pillar to get to ground level, and I was able to start the fight. Next is the Crystal Sage. What a shame. In the Cathedral, I cleared this area out and pushed this passive decon to the staircase. By giving him a good smack, he started attacking me, and I used him to get pushed downwards. To give you an idea of how inconsistent this strategy is, here is a sped-up clip showing how long it takes just to get pushed down once. You heard me right. Once. This whole thing took around 27 minutes, and there were a couple times where I accidentally rolled on top of him, making me lose some progress. But I did learn that by blocking at the right height, I would be pushed downwards a lot. This sped up things by a lot. At the bottom, I clipped to ground level, and I thanked the deacon for all his help, and I immediately died to a fireball. Now listen, there are a lot of pointless things I am willing to do for this run, but doing all that again just ain't worth it.
What up? So, at this point, I had to switch the program that I used to make my voice due to, technical difficulties. So I might sound kind of stupid at times, and it might take some time until I get this voice to sound correct again. So bear with me.
For the curse-rotted Greatwood, I tried to get in from the outside, but I was unable to get inside the room. I hate it when walls are solid. Then, for the first time in my life, I did the unthinkable. I actually did some research. I know, that's crazy, but anyway, I found this video where they used pestilent mist to kill the tree without triggering its second phase. So I went to the int build, and...
Right. Remember how I said that?
And he is actually important for this run, so make sure you find at least one scroll for him.
This is the reason. Anyway, hypothetically speaking, what if I, during my time in the Farron Keep, use this bridge and this hanging ball sack to pick up the Sage's scroll, and I gave it to the nerd?
What is this about?
I could have gotten the pestilent misspell a long time ago.
Ashen one.
You didn't see anything. Anyway, I killed the curse-rotted Greatwood, no problem. Then, I transposed the old Demon King's soul into the Chaos Bed vestiges. How original.
What is it now?
Because I technically cheated to get the Pestilent Mist. I went to the Profaned Capital, and I started praying and repenting for my sins. Instead, I was transported to the Archdragon Peak. I got the first bonfire and started the next fight. At the top of this staircase, I did a 180 and went around the building to get to the plunging site. What a shame. Wow, the damage is garbage. I used this arch to get lower, and I gave the wyvern a back massage. From the second floor, I went outside to admire the scenery, and I made my way to this staircase, and I used the ladder to get to ground level. This guy was just chilling at 2 frames per second. Pretty cool. I made my way to the next bonfire, but was unable to get it. I tried to use this enemy to get lower. Anyway, I skipped the bonfire and rang the bell. The fog gate entrance was quite a bit lower than me, and there was no way to get lower inside this area. So I made my way around the building, but once again, there were invisible walls surrounding the entire boss room. I made my way to the top of the mountain to say hi to the dragon, and to see if I could get over the walls, but they were way too high. Anyway, look at this guy. Oh, he lost interest. Well, never mind then. Then I gained some height from this hill, and I made my way underneath the boss room. But unfortunately, I was unable to do anything significant. So the Nameless King is the first boss that I was unable to kill. So sad. Anyway, DLC time. The cliff collapsed, and I made my way towards the chapel. Wow. The blizzards is really heavy this time around. This is what it's supposed to look like, by the way. I arrived at the chapel and got the bonfire. Then I went back to the beginning and went to the Millwood Tower, where I was able to lower my height. Then I used this tree to get to ground level, and I walked around the mountain to reach the bridge. I used this wall and the back of the cave to get the bonfire. I started to make my way towards the Corvian settlement. I used the walls to get as low as possible, and then I used the walls below the pathway to be at a perfect height to use the slide. Never mind then. No fun allowed, huh? I went across the ravine and used the rocks and tree roots to get lower, and I reached the Corvian settlement. This bridge pushed me downwards, and I then used this.
Ew! What the fuck?
I used these rocks to get the bonfire. Moving on, I went around the locked gate and I killed the chain smoker. Well, that seems a bit unfair.
I trust you've learned your lesson.
Anyway, I was unable to pull the lever, so I climbed this wall and I got the bonfire. In this area, I just ran to the final shortcut and I walked across this gap. Anyway, everything I just showed you is totally unnecessary, because you can just break the bridge and walk from here to the cellar area. I am so smart. In the cellar, I went to the bottom floor, and I got pushed downwards by this fly. I unlocked the boss fight. You can't bait any enemies inside the chapel, but this is not actually the end of the line just yet, because I figured out that if I drop down from the ladder at the lowest possible height, I will get pushed downwards, and I can make it inside the boss room.
I fall ill.
Then, after quitting out, the game will place me here, because I touched these stairs while flying. Then I used this corner to get to the lowest possible height, but this is actually the end of the line, as none of the walls push me downwards any more than this, and I still can't start the fight. Not even poison or an axe will trigger the fight. I even went around the boss room, where I found 2 places that pushed me downwards, but unfortunately neither of the spots work on the other side. This is the second fight that I was unable to figure out. Anyway. I used the trees to make it to the bottom. Then, I used the walls behind the bonfire to get lower. I killed the grave tender, but the wolf didn't spawn. It turns out that I had to be in this specific spot to spawn the wolf. Anyway, welcome to hell. The warping bonfires in the kiln actually extended quite high up. Before I started doing anything, I spent a good while just admiring all the cool scenery that this area has. And I started crying internally as I realized how much climbing I would have to do in this area. Like I have to get to the bottom of that tree before I can even enter the ringed city. Anyway, I used this arch and this tower to get a bit lower, and I went around the bonfire building, where I was able to descend using the backside of this wall. I made my way back in bounds and used this rocky wall to get low enough to use the side of this bridge. I used the bridge to start my descent down this mountain. Nothing special. There were constantly spots that would slowly push me downwards. But at this point, I had to make my way to the right and go inside the mountain. The inner side pushed me down, and when I was right above the building, it happened. So basically, this whole building is a massive kill box. So right before hitting the building, I went further away, and I slowly got pushed under the kill box. I used some invisible ledges on the side of the building to get lower, and I walked around any potential death cams. I used the roof to get lower.
What the fuck?
This corner pushed me down, and I was able to make it past this building. I killed the angel. Halfway there, lads. I used all kinds of towers, rocks, trees, and statues to get to ground level. You won't die, huh? Well, at least he wasn't lying. Anyway, getting down this mountain was a pain in the ass. But basically, I started at these impaled guys and used this sloped part to get lower, but not too much to avoid death cams. This spot pushed me down. I was slowly able to get to the Lothric banner area. This is such a good use of my time. I am glad I decided to do the DLCs. This spot slowly pushed me downwards, but be careful as there is a death cam right next to you. This ledge stopped my descent, so I had to wiggle my way downwards. Then I basically used every wall in this area to slowly but surely inch my way downwards, and I finally used this windmill to get the bonfire. What a fucking journey. But don't worry, this was only the first bonfire. Things will only get worse from here. So much worse. Anyway, in this area, I wasn't able to get low fast enough before getting blasted by the angel, so I spent a good while trying to kill him with my fireballs, but I was unable to get close enough before dying. And the left side of this area was filled with death cams, so going around the angel wasn't an option. So I made my way to the right, up this mountain, and I lowered my height using invisible walls. Then I went around the giant tree, and I took out the tumor connected to the second angel. I went to the swamp and made my way to the entrance. Then I dashed towards the tower that had the next bonfire. The tower could be used to get the bonfire. Next up, this hell. It was easy to use these tree roots and this cliff to get lower, but this is where the problems begin. There are death cams absolutely everywhere. And I mean, everywhere. The death cams extend throughout this entire swamp area, kind of like this. There was no way to get under the death cams, so this is where I had to call it quits. Well, I wish I could have just quit right here, but I suddenly remembered seeing a video from NG+, where they skipped the Demon Prince fight using the teardrop glitch, which is basically the same thing as no gravity, so I asked him about it, and I definitely could not have figured this out on my own. So thank you for the help. But also, curse you for showing me a way to continue this insufferable run. Anyway, love you. I made my way down the mountain and stopped right before hitting a death cam. Then I went across the hole to this rock, which will load the inside of the boss room. Then, by using the walls, I was able to make it downwards quite a bit. But at this point, the walls wouldn't push me any further. I made my way towards this floating building. And get this. I had to find a random invisible wall in this endless chasm. Yeah, pretty ridiculous. But after finding the wall, I used it to get pushed downwards. And at some point a heavy fog engulfed me. But after getting a bit lower, I ran back to the boss arena to gain back my vision. At this point, I was low enough to use the arena to get lower. When I was near ground level, the boss fight triggered, and I made my way under the floor. I went inside the cave and used Pestilent Mist to kill the demons. Watch out for poison. Absolutely fantastic. To make it worse, that wasn't the only time I died to the laser. This time, I got the meatball's second phase, and I was able to kill the demon. Right. I love challenge runs. It's not like I had anything better to do anyway. Anyway, I raised the banner and got access to the ringed shitty. I immediately had to go inside the mountain to get lower. I walked under the main path until I hit this tower. I went around the tower to get the bonfire. Back inside the mountain, I used the tower walls to get lower. Then, I used the outer side of the rocky wall to get to ground level. I ran around the bridge and said hi to Midir. Once again, there were kill boxes everywhere, and none of the walls pushed me down, except this one spot near the ladder, which actually very consistently clipped me downwards. Then, I immediately hit a kill box. This time, I went around the kill box, and I gained some height from these stairs to be at the perfect height to use the ladder. At the bottom, I made my way to the other side of the building, where this one spot pushed me down, which allowed me to load the bonfire room. But I was unable to get any lower than this, so I made my way to the church, where this one spot could actually be used to lower my height. After I was at the perfect height, I went back to the bonfire room, and I was able to get the bonfire. The end of this hallway had this wall that I got past by getting clipped by an enemy. Anyway, in this area, there were a lot of places that could be used to get lower, but I'm not going to show you every nook and crevice that I sniffed, because I don't have time to explain all the 100 identical walls that I humped to get to the next bonfire. But the most important places were this rocky wall above the humanity ladder, the door where Shira is, the side of this stairway and this ladder that leads to the Purging Monument, then the underside of the bridges above the main path, and this rock wall above Havel's Ring, and finally, this ladder leading into the swamp. If you were wondering, the walls near the swamp were fake, so they didn't help in any way. Anyway, on the bridge, Midir didn't spawn because I was too high. Then, inside the grave area, I went over the collapsing floor to get the next bonfire. The bridge was empty, and I got the shortcut. What? Turns out that from the bonfire, I had to pull the lever to be low enough to use the elevator. I dropped off early to get the Kolranthi Ring Deluxe Edition, and I went inside the church. First try. In this area, I was way too high to trigger the fight, and there were invisible walls surrounding the area. Anyway, if you were curious, Anor Londo is just a PNG file, but Lothric Castle actually has its full model here. Pretty cool. I used different pillars to stay low enough to start the Gale fight. Luckily, I know this fight better than my own pockets, so it didn't take long to get to second phase. Cut that out. This time around, there wasn't a cutscene, so I had to blast Gale from above. Not this time. so epic. Anyway, the ladder to Midir was way lower than me, but I used the back of this room to lower my height. Right. I got lower to spawn Midir. On the bridge, I used Pestilent Mist to knock him out. The walls didn't push me downwards at all, so I needed to find a way to reach the bottom from the outside. Near the first bridge, I was able to use some walls to get under the out-of-bounds swamp, but at this point, I was unable to get any lower. More importantly, I was unable to load Midir's boss room. Then I tried to use the tunnel that drops into the boss room from the outside. So I went underneath the room after the second bridge, and I used the underside of the bridge to get lower. By aimlessly wandering for a while, I was able to load Midir's arena.
Oh my god! Wow!
By running into the tunnel, I was able to get a little bit lower, but the tunnel didn't push me down nearly enough to reach the bottom. There were also death cams everywhere, and I would accidentally unload the area if I wandered too far away. After not achieving any significant progress, I once again turned to this video for help, where they were able to load Midir's arena by starting from the Demon Prince area. So I turned on gravity for research purposes, and I died in Midir's boss room to have my bloodstain show the location of the arena. Then I did the Demon Prince skip again, but I made sure that my Z coordinate was at the perfect level relative to Midir's arena. Then I wandered my way towards my bloodstain, and I actually found it. But I was unable to load Midir's arena. I don't know why this was the case. Anyway, at this point, I had spent way too long on this one boss, so I decided to cut my losses and I gave up. If you want to see this strategy done successfully, watch NG Plus's video. Anyway, Soul of Cinder time. Is that Goku from Fortnite?
Oh my god.
Fortnite.
I blasted him from above and used these two spots to get low enough to beat the game. Hello. The prompt closes automatically before I can select yes. Of course, there had to be some final fuckery going on. Also, there is absolutely no way to get lower, other than the two spots that I just showed you. All the other walls are straight. So I went underneath the map, where I gained some height, but was unable to use the bonfire from here. So I used computer magic to revive the boss, and used the walls to get lower, before having him push me downwards, until I was lower than the bonfire. Anyway, I was planning to do an area difficulty tier list here, but ain't nobody got time for that. So here are my stats. See ya, lads.